Thank you. Good evening, everyone. We have progressed a lot in our previous session as we were discussing on various problems, how to solve them, and we understood a lot of new concepts, correct? We understood how to do the computation, how to arrive at the valuation, how to interpret the question, and how to present our answers, right? So as I was explaining in the previous session also, a lot of practice is required. The more you practice, the master you become, right? That's why it said practice makes a man perfect. So you have to reach that perfection, close to that perfection, so that you can achieve what is intended for your present achievement of your exams. So few people were asking questions from the study material also, which we try to solve. And if there are some questions which you want me to take up from the study material, which you're not able to understand, I can explain you that also before we get into the questions which we have before us. So close to 15 plus questions we'll have today as well, which we'll have to solve. If you're all ready, we could start this. Else, if you have any specific query, we could answer that as well. We are just waiting for 2 minutes for anyone to just ask a question. In the chapter time and the question of Sudhanshu Shekhar is, in the chapter time and value of supply, what is section 12, section 2? Could you elaborate? Okay. Let me take you through the section 12, subsection 2. What is your specific question, Sudhanshu? Because the section is quite big with explanation. What is your specific question? Excess payment up to 1,000 rupees, option of taking invoice as date of supply. Okay. So generally the time of supply of goods is earliest of the following. Okay, let me present the screen so that we are on the same page. Okay, so this is the section 12 subsection 2. It says that the time of supply of goods shall be the earlier of the following: the date of issue of the invoice or the date on which supplier receives the payment with respect to the supply. So it is earliest of issue of invoice or the date of supply, issue of invoice or receipt of payment, whichever is earlier, provided where the supplier of taxable goods receives an amount up to 1,000 rupees in excess of an amount indicated in the tax invoice. The time of supply to the extent of such excess shall, at the option of said supplier, be the date of issue of invoice in respect of such excess amount. Firstly, Sudhanshu, this provision is kept in abeyance for goods, which means generally what is the time of supply when for issuance of goods? It is either issue of invoice or receipt of advance, whichever is earlier, right? But through a notification, this provision does not apply for supply of goods. Okay, so similar provision you have for time of supply of services, there it will apply, which means when you receive any amount in advance, okay, do you have to pay GST? It depends on the fact that you're receiving advance for what. If you're receiving an advance for supply of goods, then on advance you don't have to pay GST. You have to pay in GST once you raise the invoice. Okay, but for issue of services, supply of services, if you are receiving any advance, say I've received advance of 1 lakh rupees and services will be provided after 3 months. So the time of supply will be the time of when you receive the advance, which is today. So I have to pay GST. The time of supply is triggering today. Okay. So similar provision we have for services. For goods, it is not applicable. Fine. In section 13, you will find it time of supply of services. I'll take you to section 13. 12 is not applicable in respect of goods because that is kept in abeyance, or that is kept postponed to a date when it will get notified. Now we'll talk about section 13, which is relevant for us. Yes. Time of supply of services here also is either of these 3 criteria. The time of supply of services shall be the earliest of the following, provided where the supplier of services receives an amount up to rupees 1,000 in excess, then he can shift the time of supply to the date of invoice, right? Like, let's take an example, then we'll understand this better. We are paying for our mobile bills. So if it is postpaid, you're making payment, right? Like prepaid, you are recharging, but for postpaid, you have to get a bill and you pay the amount. Or it could be any subscription for which you get an invoice and then you pay it. Now, if the invoice is say 4,400 rupees, okay, now I don't want to make such odd amount. I will make a whole amount of 5,000 rupees payment, right? And it's a service. Issue of telecommunication services, providing broadband services is a service, not goods. So when the company provides me an invoice of 4,400 rupees, and if I make any advance payment, the time of supply is what? Receipt, issue of invoice, or payment, whichever is earlier, right? Now, when they've given 4,400, if I pay 4,400 to them, the time of supply is the date of invoice. Now, I don't want to pay such odd amount. I'll round it off and pay 5,000 rupees. So how much is the excess I've paid? 5,000 minus 4,400. So 600 is an excess. Now, so this 600 is an advance which I've paid for adjustment in my next bill. So technically on this 600, they have to pay GST because it is advance received. Now, when I pay the 600, the company has to pay advance GST on this advance amount of 600 rupees. Now this provision says that wherever there is an excess amount more than the bill up to rupees 1000 rupees, they don't have to pay GST on advance receipt for that 1000 up to 1000 rupees. In my example, 4,400 was the bill. I paid 5,000. So 600 rupees is the advance. On that 600, they don't have to pay GST. So they can pay it when they raise the invoice in the subsequent month. So if I'm getting a bill for my mobile phone every month, the time of supply is the month on month. Now for this 600 rupees, when I am paying to that company, they should pay based on the main provisions, but there is a proviso to the provision which says that if there is an excess payment to the extent of 1000 rupees excess. So if it is 4,400, I'm paying 5,000, the excess is 600. But if I pay 6,000 rupees, the excess is more than 1,000. The excess is how much? 1,600. So on that, they will have to pay GST on advance, but up to 1,000 rupees excess, they don't have to take the hassle of paying the GST on advance basis. They can pay it once they raise the invoice, because this advance will get adjusted there. So up to 1,000 rupees is the criteria. They're saying that 1,000 rupees is very small amount. On this, I don't want to disturb you and say that pay GST on receipt of advances, that you can pay it once you raise the invoice. So that is the understanding of this provision. Are you clear now, Sudhanshu? Okay. Atwati, your question on renting of commercial property. Now, renting of commercial property, there could be two aspects. One is the income portion and one is the rental portion. Now, when I'm giving it on rent, who is enjoying? The tenant is enjoying, right? So the landlord will charge GST in his invoice and the tenant will pay GST on it. So what is the landlord doing? He's collecting the GST from the tenant and paying it to the government. Who is bearing the tax on this? The tenant is bearing the tax, because the landlord will charge in his invoice, and ultimately who will pay? The tenant will pay it. Now tenant, even if it's a commercial thing, then he can take the credit of it, but if he cannot take it, then it's a burden on him. But ultimately landlord is not suffering anything. He's only collecting tax from his tenant and depositing to the government's treasury. So that is the GST aspect on it. Now for the same rental, you will have to show that rental as your income. Under which head you will show? You will show it under income from house property. On the income, which is the income portion on this, income tax is payable by the landlord. So on the same transaction, income tax is payable by the landlord and GST is collected by the landlord, but ultimately paid by the tenant. Okay, so that's how we have to look a transaction from two aspects. One is the income aspect, and on the same transaction, you have a supply aspect. So there could be possibility that one transaction can have multiple aspects. Okay. Okay. Now let's continue with our questions. So we finished 15 questions in our previous problem solving session. Now let's start with question number 16. Rosary Private Limited, a registered supplier, is engaged in supplying the taxable service leviable to GST at 18%. Compute the value of taxable supply and the GST payable by it in the month of July 2018 from the information furnished below. So he's engaged in supplying of taxable service, right? So when it is supplying of taxable service, immediately what should strike to you? The relevant section, which is section 13. More than section 13, the aspect of whether GST is payable on advance or no. If it is goods, Is GST payable on advance? No, it is not payable. But if it is service, is GST payable on advance? Yes, GST is payable on advance. And hence, in this question, if there is any advance received, time of supply will trigger when the advance is received itself. Advance received from the clients for which no service has been rendered so far. So 8 lakh is the advance he's collected, but service is still not rendered. Second, demurrage charges recovered for use of services beyond the agreed period, 89,000. What is demurrage charges? It means kind of penalty, right? When I've provided some service. Now, this service I told that you should use for 1 month. Now, if he's used for extra period of say 5 days, 1 month and 5 days, for 1 month, I will collect the service fees. But for this extra usage of 5 days, I will collect some charges called as demurrage charges. Right? So the penalty for using the service more than the specified period is called as the demurrage charges. So any demurrage charges recovered is also a service. Demurrage charges recovered for use of service is 89,000. Then security deposits. We have some security deposits. This security deposit forfeited for damages done by service receiver owing to his negligence in the course of receiving a service, not due to unforeseen actions, is 5 lakh rupees. What does this mean? That I have some advance deposits of my customer. Now the customer has kept some deposit with me. Now this deposit, I have to return it back whenever my terms of contract gets completed. But what happens if there is any kind of a negligence from the other party? I can use this demurrage, you can use the security deposit for recovering any amount which is due from him. So once a deposit is recovered or converted as a receivable, then GST becomes payable on that also. Like in the chapter you would have understood, in the chapter of supply, we have seen that when does a security deposit, when if it is apportioned as payment, then it is taxable, not otherwise. So this is the instance in that case. Then, besides the above receipts, one of the clients, SBS Limited, made a payment of 1,45,000 rupees, out of which rupees 25,000 were paid extra by mistake. Okay. However, Rosie Private Limited refused to return the excess payment received. Okay, that is the question. What are we supposed to calculate? We are required to compute the value of taxable supply. We are not and the GST payable both. So value and the GST which is payable. This being a first question, let's work it out together. Very simple. Oops, here is the answer. Add this. Okay. Computation of value. As usual, write the question number, then mention what are you trying to do. Computation of value of taxable supply and GST payable for Rosary Private Limited. What is the amount? What is received? So one by one, we'll go to this. So we'll include this advance received. Next is demurrage charges. Demurrage charges recovered for use of the services beyond the agreed period. Okay. Demurrage charges 89,000 rupees. This is also a service. This also has to be included. Right. Next is security deposit. Now security deposit is there. It is forfeited. Forfeited to the extent of how much? 5 lakh rupees. So this is also to be included in the calculation of value of taxable supply. The security deposit 5 lakh rupees. Then payment from SBS Limited. Now how much is this made payment? SBS Limited has made a payment of 1,45,000 rupees, out of which 25,000 were paid extra by mistake. Now, however, Rosary Private Limited refused to return the excess payment. Now, how much is the taxable value in this case? Is it 1,45,000 or 1,45,000 minus 25,000? Yes, Mohammed. All the questions along with solution will be uploaded today itself. 1,20,000, 1,20,000. Is it goods or services? Since he is engaged in supply of taxable services, good question, Dikshita. But the question itself is saying that he is engaged in supplying taxable services which are leviable to tax at 18%. So since in the question itself, they mentioned that he is into the business of providing taxable services. So this will also be services itself. Yes, most of you are giving correct answer. It is 1,45,000 rupees because advance received except security deposit, any other amount received is taxable. So in this case, full 1,45,000 will be taxable. Now, out of 25,000, whether he wants to return or not return, that's a separate thing. When he provides a taxable supply, to that extent, he will adjust. And to the extent of excess received, he has to discharge the GST on it. So that's why on full 1,45,000 will be the taxable supply. So what is the total value? 15,34,000. Now, what is the GST payable? That is important. Whenever you make a supply, on the supply, you can charge GST. But these things on advance, he's paid you advance. Demerit charges, he's paid you demerit charges. He'll not pay anything more than that. Security deposit is forfeited. Already he did not pay you. Now from his security deposit, you have adjusted. So all of this are instances of cum tax. Cum tax means inclusive of tax. There are two concepts. One is X tax and one is cum tax. When is X tax? When I enter into a transaction and I agree for a value plus taxes. That is an example of X tax. And when I agree or when the transaction is such nature that the other person will not pay anything about that, like security deposit forfeited. Now, I had 5 lakh rupees. I have adjusted that against the value which I have to receive. So I will not receive anything else from him. So that becomes the transaction of cum tax, which means inclusive of taxes. So all of this is inclusive of taxes. So my taxable value will be how much? Taxable supply is 15,34,000 divided by 118 because it is value plus tax of 18% into 100 will give me the value of taxable supply. Okay. And total GST payable is 13 lakhs into 18%. Okay. So be careful. Don't think that 15,34,000 is the value of taxable supply and you apply 18% on that. That is not correct. Okay. On 13 lakhs, you have to 15,34,000 cum tax and then 18% on that. Mohammed, can you please elaborate your question? Your question is not clear. Clear with this question and the answer? In question itself, it says that 25,000 is paid by mistake. Yeah. Then why we treat it as an advance? Because if I return it, it is not an advance because I have to return it. Now, in this question, they have specifically said, Mohammed, that I have agreed, Rosary Private Limited has refused to return it. Then what is it? It is an advance, correct? Now, whether if they return it, then it is not to be treated as a supply. But if they are not returning it clearly, it means it's an amount received. Now, on this, when you're not returning it back, it means it's an amount which is lying with you, on which GST is payable. So that's why you'll have to calculate GST on that as well. It means that on advance, extra payments, GST is included in the amount. Correct. Can you please explain how question number 16 inclusive of taxes? So it becomes on each transaction. So at least in this question, Ms. Rushita, all the values are considered as come tax because the nature of these transactions are like that. Like advance received, on advance, GST is already included. You cannot collect anything above than that. Demerit charges is not like I issue an invoice for that. I have forfeiting whatever is the damage you have done or extra thing which you have taken on that. I'm collecting some amount. So apart from that amount, I cannot collect any other taxes. So that's why demerit charges becomes come tax, inclusive of tax. Then security deposit. I had 5 lakh rupees. Now you didn't pay me in the normal course of business. That's why whatever deposit I had with you, I'm adjusting against the supply. Say I had made a supply of 6 lakh rupees plus taxes. Okay. Now, to the extent of security deposit apportioned is amount what I've received. So on this security deposit, I will not receive anything extra. That's why this is also inclusive of taxes. Then payment from SBS Limited, wherein the payment is already made. Now he will not make any more payment. That's why that is also treated as inclusive of taxes. So all the instances are inclusive of taxes. That's why we can take as a value of taxable supplies inclusive of taxes. That's why we'll divide by 118 into 100. Okay, let's go to the next question now. Question number 17. Sri Krishna Private Limited, a registered dealer, furnishes the following information relating to. So we have to write about important provisions like time of supply provisions, valuation, those important sections. If you remember, then the examiner will be confident that you have aware of the important chapters, important sections. So important sections, I would suggest you to remember. For identify whether transactions are inclusive or exclusive depends on the nature of the. If nothing is given, the nature of the transaction itself will decide. Like this, the exact question number 16 is a good example of the various instances where it will be all inclusive of taxes. Mohammed, your question on refund from electronic cash ledger and electronic credit ledger will receive as cash to taxpayer. A refund of electronic cash ledger you will receive in cash ledger itself. Electronic credit ledger, you get refund only in specific instances. In those instances like export of services or export of goods, or you're making any supply to a SEZ, which are all falling under the category of zero rated supply, then you can get a refund in cash. Okay. Question number 17, Ms. Sri Krishna Private Limited, a registered dealer, furnishes the following information relating to goods sold by it to Sri Balram Private Limited in the course of intrastate supply. Prices of the goods 1 lakh, municipal taxes 2,000, inspection charges 15,000, subsidies received from Sri Ram Trust as the products is going to be used for blind association 50,000 rupees. Late fees for delayed payment 1,000 rupees. Though Sri Balram Private Limited made late payment, but these charges are waived by Sri Krishna Private Limited. Then Sri Balram Private Limited paid to Radhe Private Limited on behalf of Krishna Private Limited payment charges 2,000 rupees. So quickly compute the value of supply. This is a very simple question. I want you to work out and tell me the answer. Will Rosedale Limited raise the invoice against the transaction which they receive for the recording? For a supply, they raise the invoice. For the advances or for the amounts which is received and for which supply is actually not made, they will raise a document called as a receipt voucher. Okay, so the receipt voucher is sufficient for them to charge the GST and pay the GST. They will not raise a tax invoice. Yeah, only few answers, and I'm getting varied answers. Miss Manisha, Master Mohammed, Miss Rushita. Only three answers. What about others? Sejal, your answer is interesting. 1,69,847.45. Okay. Okay. So I'll show the answer. Now you could cross verify your answers then. Price of the goods, 1 lakh. Okay, this is definitely to be considered because there's no corrections here. Price of the goods. Then municipal taxes, should we add? Yes, we will add the municipal taxes. Then inspection charges. Will we add the inspection charges? Yes. Any inspection charges paid for the on behalf of the customer has to be included. So inspection charges added. Subsidy received from Sri Ram Trust. Will this be added? Yes, this has to be added because subsidy received from the government is the only thing which will get excluded, but every other subsidy gets added. So subsidy is added. Late fees, is it to be added in the value of taxable supply? Now there is a late fees, but the late fees, Barlama made late payment, but these charges are waived. Since this is waived off, then I will not include it. Okay, so this is not included. Then payment charges. Payment charges paid by whom? It is paid by Krishna Private Limited. Okay. On paid by Radhe Private Limited, paid to Radhe Private Limited, paid by whom? Balram Limited. So any amount paid by the receiver on behalf of the supplier is to be added. So this will also get added. So the value of taxable supply, only one person has given the correct answer, 1,69,000. So this is the value of the taxable supply. Okay. There is no variation. That is the answer. Okay. You go to next question. Question number 18. Mera Sons, a registered supplier, is a wholesale supplier of ready-made garments located in Bandra, Mumbai. Okay. On 5th September 2000, Subhadra, owner of Aura Boutique located in Dadar, Mumbai, approached Mera Sons. If we assume trust is recognized by government, then answer is 69,000. No. Even if the trust is recognized by government, it is not a government. It can be recognized by the government, but all subsidies received by the state government and central government, only these subsidies are exempted. Any other subsidies which is received by any organization which is recognized by the government also is not to be considered, right? Only subsidies received by government is to be considered, is to be excluded. All other subsidies has to be added. लेट फीस में 847 अमाउंट ऐड नहीं करेंगे. लेट फेज में 847 ऐड नहीं करेंगे बिकॉज वो लेट फेज वेव ऑफ हो गया है. वरना अगर वेव ऑफ नहीं करते तो आपका कैलकुलेशन करेक्ट है कि आपने ग्रॉस अप कर लिया. इवन सेजल योर आंसर वुड बी करेक्ट दैट यू हैव ग्रॉस्ड अप इन केस the late fees was collected, but in this case late fees has been waived off, which means I will not collect it. Okay, so there is no supply in that case, and it need not be added to the value of the taxable supply. Okay, let's jump into question number 18. Mera Sons, a registered supplier, is a wholesale supplier of ready-made garments in Mumbai. On 5th September, Subhadra, who is owner of Aura Boutique located in Dadar, approached Mera Sons for supply of a consignment for customized dresses for ladies and kids. Now, Subhadra hands over the check for payment on the same date. Okay. The said payment is entered into the accounts on 20th September 2020 and amount is credited in the bank account on 21st September 2020. Mehra Sons get the consignments ready by 2nd December 2020 and inform Subhadra about the same. The invoice for the consignment was issued the next day, which is the 3rd December 2020. Due to some reason, Subhadra could not collect the consignment immediately. So she collects the consignment from the premises of Mehra Sons on 18th December. So many dates are there. Basically, time of supply. So we have to brush up our provisions on time of supply and give the answer. You are required to determine the time of supply of the ready-made garments supplied by Mehra Sons to Subhadra, elaborating the relevant provisions under the GST law. So what is your view on what is the time of supply for this question? Yes, let's be interactive in this session so that you can understand the provisions better. Even if you give it a wrong answer, that's fine. At least you're attempting, so you know what will be the correct answer. 21st September. Okay. Because the amount is credited in the bank account. Okay. I'm not saying if it's correct or wrong. Any more? 5th September. What has happened on 5th September? Approach Mehra Sons. Okay. That will become the time of supply. You can guess, but just think of the legal provisions and see whether your answer fits that. Okay, Bhumika, you have explained the provisions very well. Time of supply of good under forward charge mechanism is date of issuance of invoice or the last date of issuance of invoice or date of receipt of payment by the supplier, whichever is earlier. In the given case, date of receipt of payment is earlier. Therefore, say 20th September. Okay. 21st September, 20th September. Okay. Just now, the first question which was asked by one person, I had clarified through going through the provisions of section 12 and section 13. What did we discuss? If you could just look at that, you'll get the answer for this very easily. The date of removal or date of invoice, whichever is earlier, since it involves removal of goods. Okay. I think I will have to bring that provision of the section 12 so that you can understand what mistake you're doing. Ms. Bindu, you could pose your question. In the meantime, I'll just answer this query on, just read this provision, which is very, very important. Tax not payable at the time of receipt of invoice for supply of goods. Special procedure for payment of tax in case of supply of goods. In exercise of the powers conferred by Section 148, the central government has issued a notification number 66 of 2017. Okay, 66 of 2017, note this down, very important notification, to specify that a registered person, excluding composite supplier, for composite supplier, this will not apply, excluding a composite supplier, which means a normal supplier of goods, should pay GST on the outward supply of goods at the time of supply as specified in section 12A, that is date of issue of invoice or the last day on which invoice ought to be have been issued. Okay, in simple words, all taxable payers, all taxpayers under forward charge are not required to pay GST at the time of receipt of advance in relation to supply of goods. Okay, the entire GST will be payable only when the invoice for such goods is issued or ought to have been issued. Okay, when it is ought to have been issued for movable goods before the time of removal. Okay, so I have to understand that when I'm supplying goods, issue of invoice or receipt of advance, whichever is earlier, will not apply. Okay, so in case of goods, it is always on the date of issue of invoice or the last date when I'm supposed to issue the invoice, which means if I've received the advance on 1st January, I have issued an invoice on 28th February, the time of supply will not be 1st January, it will be 28th February. Now, take another example. I have received advance on 1st January. I have issued the goods on 15th February and I raised the invoice on 1st of March. In that case, receipt of advance is gone because it's supply of goods, and mention whenever you have a goods question that advance received is not taxable and GST is payable at the time of issue of invoice or the last day when invoice has to be issued, whichever is earlier. Okay, so that's the reason in the present question number 18, the answer will be like this. Time of supply is the earlier of these two dates. Which two dates? Date of issue of invoice or the last day on which invoice is required to be issued, or like the date of receipt of payment generally. But however, notification number 66 of 2017 condition gives under point B has been relaxed. So in nutshell, time of supply will be the date of issue of invoice by the supplier or the due date of issuance of invoice in case invoice is not issued on time, right? If it is issued on time, no problem. Now, in this case, the date of invoice is 3rd December 2020. This is the date of invoice. So the time of supply will be one moment, let me adjust this. Time of supply will be the date of issue of invoice, which is 3rd December 2020, because which is already specified is date of issue of invoice or the due date on which it has to be issued. So it has to be issued by the when it is dispatched, when the goods are taken, and the goods are collected on 18 December. But I have issued the invoice before that. So date of issue of invoice will be the time of supply. In this case, the date of issue of invoice will be the time of supply. Okay, understood the clarification confusion now. Everybody is saying September because there's so many dates on September. So we are just thinking it is September. But in case of issuance of invoice, payment is not to be seen. Only the due date of raising the invoice has to be seen. Now, in this case, invoice also the various dates. I have issued the invoice on 3rd December. She has not collected the consignment, but she's collected on 18 December. So we can get very much confused, but understand that if you have raised the invoice and goods are collected later on, it will become the date of issuance of invoice itself. But other way around, if the goods are cleared now, but invoice is issued later, whichever is earlier, which means the date when the goods are cleared will be the time of supply. Okay, Ms. Bindu, you can ask your question, please. Why was this so very confusing? Okay, if there are no more questions, can we proceed further? We have to check when the goods were collected and not, and on that basis, time of supply will be decided. Not collected when I've dispatched, because sometimes I dispatch and it may reach to my customer after 2-3 days. It is not on the receipt, it's the date on clearance, when the goods are cleared from my premises. That will be the date when I have to raise an invoice. Okay, we'll go to the next question. Kabira Industries Limited, which is engaged in the services of a transporter of road transport of a consignment on 7th June. Okay, and made advance payment for the transport on the same date, 7th June. However, the consignment could not be sent immediately on account of a strike in the factory, and instead was sent on 20th July. Okay. Invoice was received from the transporter on 22nd July. What is the time of supply of the transporter service? This is also related to time of supply. So please, not directly related to the previous question. Previous question also was on time of supply, but there it was on goods. Here it is on services. So here, what will be your answer? December 3rd, because invoice issued and advance on goods not matter. So, sir, if goods is sent in installment and goods received date, no. It is for the receiver that when multiple lots have been supplied, GST input credit has to be claimed on receipt of last lot. But from the supplier's perspective, even if he's sending in lot basis, once he dispatches the first lot, then he has to issue the invoice. Okay. So other person to claim if there are multiple lots, I will raise the invoice on the first lot. But for the recipient, he has to claim the credit only when he receives the last lot. Okay. Somebody is saying 22nd July. Okay. But not a firm answer. Okay. 17th June. Since Kabira Industries is engaged into service business, payment received or invoice raised, whichever is earlier, is the time of supply. Okay. But it is a little tricky. I will not give you such a simple question, and neither in your CA exams you'll get such a simple question. Supply of services, right? But who has to pay GST and on what basis? Once you apply that, then you'll get an answer for this. 7th June, because supply of service, advance receipt, or date of invoice, whichever is earlier. But is this just supply of service or something more? There is something more in this. Something more is involved. Just think what is more involved. Why is this little tricky question? In the meantime, people, if you have any more questions after we finish our problem solving today, and you come across some questions and you know that there is some confusion, you could reach out to me. My mobile number is 9886 111 814. So you could reach out to me and ask me your queries. I will try to resolve it. Let's come back to this question. What do you think? Is this such a simple question that receipt of advance or issue of invoice, whichever is earlier? Correct, Ms. Kavita, your interpretation is correct. This is a service of transportation for road transport of a consignment, which means this is a goods transport agency service. And GTA service, we have been discussing so well in detail that on GTA service, the GTA will not pay the GST, the receiver, the recipient will pay the GST. So GST is payable under reverse charge. Okay. So reverse charge basis, your answer, ultimately the date might be correct, but your reasoning of the answer also has to be correct, saying that this is a GTA service. For GTA service, the time of supply is following three criteria, whichever is earlier. So you'll have to mention these three criteria and then decide, not just on the criteria of advance received or issue of invoice, issue of supply of services, whichever is earlier, that will not be the criteria. You'll have to specifically mention this is a service of a GTA which is liable to tax under reverse charge basis, and for reverse charge, the following is the criteria. Okay, your answers are not important. how you arrive at your answers is very, very important. And your arrival at the answers has to be given in steps, explained the relevant provisions, if not the relevant provisions, the logic of those provisions, and highlighting that this is a instance of a special category of transaction called reverse charge mechanism. For reverse charge mechanism, the time of supply is so and so, and that is how it is taxable. As per section 13(3), time of supply of services taxable under reverse charge is the earlier of the following dates, which is date after 60 days from the date of invoice. So date of invoice is 7th June. No. Invoice was received on 22nd July. Okay. So 60 days from the date of invoice is August, September. How do I get 20th September? 60 days. It doesn't say 2 months. 60 days, which means July will have 31 days. August will have 31 days. So July में कितने दिन है? 31 minus 22, 9 days. 9 and August 31. 31 plus 9 is 40 days. And July 9, August 21, 30. July 31, 31 plus 9, 40, and 20 days of September. So 20th of September, not 20th, 22nd of September. That also you have to be careful. How do you calculate the 60 days period? 60 days is actual dates, okay, not on a calendar date. So 60 days from the date of invoice or date of payment. The date of payment is 7th June, right? So 20th September or 7th June, whichever is earlier. In this case, the date of payment precedes the date immediately after 60 days from the invoice date, which is 7th June. Hence, the date of payment, that is 7th June, will be treated as time of supply for the services. So calculation of the 30th, 60th day is also important, not a random date. You have to calculate 60 days exactly from the date of invoice. Okay, let's go to the next question. Classic Textiles Limited purchased a needle detecting machine on 6th July 2017 from Balaji Engineering Works for 10 lakh rupees, paying GST at 18% on the same. It availed the input tax credit of the GST paid on the machine and started using it for manufacturing of goods. Now, the machine was sold on 18th October 2018, which means the company, what is the company? Classic Textiles Limited. They purchased a needle detecting machine. So it's a plant and machinery. On when did it purchase? It purchased on 6th July for a value of 10 lakh and paid GST at 18%. It has availed the input tax credit on GST paid on the machine and started using it for manufacturing of goods. The machine now was sold on 18th October 2018 for a value of just 6 lakh rupees. Now the GST rate on such supply of machinery is 18%. Compute the amount payable by Classic Textiles in according with the statutory GST provisions on the sale of second-hand machine. So for sale of second-hand machine, what are the provisions we have to apply? Since it is supplied for 6 lakh into 18%, straight away take no. Such a simple question. Why are they confusing us? Mohammed, for calculating 60 days, the date of invoice is included or excluded? Date of invoice will be excluded. 60 days from the date of invoice. So date of invoice will be excluded. Okay, so it is not a simple case of on your outward supply calculate the GST for a machinery or for that matter any asset which is capitalized. Any capital assets when you purchase, you can claim the GST, but if you sell, okay, a capital asset is depreciated over a period of time, right? So similarly in GST, whenever a capital asset is purchased, the useful life for all the assets are treated as it is useful for 5 years. Okay. So even if it is used for less years or if it is used for more years, there is a standard set in GST law wherein the asset is assumed to have been used for will be useful for 5 years. So if you use for 5 years and sell it afterwards, then you don't have to reverse your input tax credit, whatever you're getting on that pay GST. But if you're selling it before 5 years, then you have to do a comparison between the input, what you have availed, and what is the supply for the goods, whichever is higher. Okay. So for this, how will work out is like this. Classic Textiles Limited, computation of GST payable. So section 18 is relevant. Section 18 says that whenever a fixed asset has been purchased and sold, how will you calculate the value of GST on that case? You have to do a comparison between input tax credit taken less the useful life you have to consider, and you have to reduce 5%. What is this 5%? I said that all capital assets are deemed to be used for 5 years, which means 100% for 5 years. So 100 divided by 5, how much is it? 100 divided by 5, 20%. So 20%, treat this 20% as a depreciation year on year. So if I use the asset for 1 year, they will give me depreciation benefit of 20%. On the GST, reduce 20% and balance is the input, which I have to pay to the government, because government said on capital assets, I'll give you the depreciation benefit. So I will give you the benefit to claim the full GST also. But if you sell it in between, then pay me the GST back. But I've used the asset for 1 year. No, okay. So used it for 1 year, 20% reduction. On 1 lakh rupees machinery, 20% is 20,000. 20,000 leave it. On 80,000 rupees, pay me the ITC. Okay. So that's how you calculate input tax credit taken on the machine. How much is the input I've taken? 10 lakhs into 18%, which is 1,80,000. Right? Now, ITC has to be reversed to the extent I have used the assets. Now, how much did I use the asset? Which means 20%. They said 20 divided by 4. In a year, you have 4 quarters, right? Each quarter is for 4 months. So 20 divided by 4. 20 divided, each quarter is 3 months. So 20 divided by 3 makes it 4, right? Each quarter will be 5%, 5%, 5% each. Okay. So 5% each, 20 divided by 4, 4 quarters in a year, 5% each quarter. ITC to be reversed at 5% per quarter. How do you calculate the quarter? For the year 2017-18. When was this asset purchased? 6th July 2017. So July, August, September, 1 quarter. July, August, September, October, November, December, Jan, Feb, March, 3 quarters. So 1,80,000 input tax credit into 3 quarters into 5% per quarter will give me a value of 1,80,000 into 3 into 5% makes it 27,000. So 17-18, I've got the benefit of 27,000. Now for the next year, up till the date of sale. Now, asset bought in 17, July, August, September. Even in the middle of the quarter also can be considered full quarter. Not necessary that I should have purchased on the first quarter itself, first day of the quarter. I have purchased on 6th July, July, August, September, full 3 months, 1 quarter, I'll get the benefit. July, August, September, October, November, December, Jan, Feb, March, 3 quarters in 17-18, and 18-19, again, April, May, June, July, August, September, October, November, December, but I've sold it on 18th October only. How can you give me benefit of full quarter? The provision says a quarter or a part of it also can be considered. So for the year 2018-19, April, May, June, July, August, September, and October, November, December, that quarter's benefit also I will get. So 1,80,000 into 3 quarters into 5% for 18, 19 also makes it 27,000. So total of this is 54,000. So ITC taken less what is to be reversed. Balance is the ITC to be reversed. Now section 18 says this is your ITC less your depreciation. So either you reverse this or you consider the transaction value. Means at what price you're selling 6 lakhs on that 18%, which is 1,08,000. GST has to be paid on sale of second-hand goods will be higher of these two. Okay, the amount payable on disposal is higher of A and B, which is 1,26,000 is higher. So 1,26,000 is the GST payable. Okay. Kindly digest this concept very much. This is a little complicated. You would have studied it in your ITC chapter, but this is just a revision for you. So for calculating 60 days, the date of invoice, that is 22nd July, included or excluded? Excluded. You could go through this question and answer. In the meantime, we'll take a break and we'll catch up again at 7:25. This question, I need questions on this problem, question 20, because you have to be thoroughly clear with this. Okay. So there's one question on this uh, problem. Why have we taken 3 quarters in 1819? In 1819 starts from April 18, right? So April to June 18 is 1 quarter. July to September 18 is 1 quarter. Then October to December, even though the asset is used till 18th October, Section 18 says part of the quarter is also to be considered as a full quarter. That's why even if they have used for 1 day in the quarter, in this case, it is used only for 18 days. Still, you can take the benefit of the full quarter. So that's why the third quarter is also considered. So April to June, July to September, and October to December, 3 quarters have been considered. Okay, let's move to question number 21. A garment factory receives a government order for making uniforms for a commando unit. This supply is exempt from tax under a special notification, right? Because supply to government authorities is exempted. The fabric is separately procured for the supply, right? So for this, what is required? Fabric, thread, and lining material. Okay, fabric, thread, and lining material. The fabric is separately procured, but thread and lining material for the collars are the ones which are used for other taxable products of the factory, right? So when a garment factory manufactures something, they will manufacture for the exempt supply also and for non-exempt supplies also, right? When they want to sell it in the open market, and that time it is taxable. So fabric for this commando is separately, government order is separately received. For this, they will buy the raw materials, which is the fabric separately, but common materials like the trims or the accessories will be common. Okay. The turnover of the other products of the factory and exempted uniforms in July is 4 crores and 1 crore respectively, which means turnover of other products is 4 crores and exempted is 1 crore. And the ITC on thread and lining material procured is 5,000 and 15,000 respectively. Calculate the eligible ITC on thread and lining material. So we have to calculate what is the exemption, because we have seen under section 16 and under 17 that where input is procured commonly for exempted and taxable supply, we can claim only proportionate credit. So we will see how do we calculate the proportionate credit in this case. Section 21. Thread and lining materials are inputs which are used for making taxable as well as exempt supplies. Therefore, credit on such items will be apportioned and credit attributable to exempt supplies will be added to the output tax liabilities in terms of Rule 43. Okay. Therefore, credit attributable to exempt supply will be common credit, which is the thread and lining common credit into exempt supplies divided by total supplies. So exempt turnover divided by total turnover. Okay. Common credit is what? This 5,000 and 15,000 is the common credit. Okay. Then what is the exempt turnover? Exempt turnover is 1 crore. And what is the total turnover? Total turnover will be exempt plus taxable turnover, which is 1 crore plus 4 crore makes it 5 crores. So the credit attributable to exempt supply is 2 crores. Okay, basic 20,000 rupees, which is this formula. Common credit, the input credit into exempt supplies by total supplies. 20,000 into 1 crore divided by 5 crores. Okay, which gives us 4,000 rupees. So this 4,000 is the common credit, the credit which is attributable only to exempt supplies. My total credit is 20,000 rupees, 15 plus 5, 20,000. From this 20,000, I will reduce 4,000 and 16,000 is my eligible credit. So even though I have got the credit of 20,000 rupees, 4,000 credit is related to exempt supplies. I cannot claim the credit. Balance of 16,000 I can claim, which is called as eligible input tax credit. So if purchased in 30th September or 20th September, purchase, especially your question is purchase. Because your purchase date, what we had considered was July. Okay, now if you're saying it is purchased on 30th September, July, August, still that quarter will be included. Yeah, still we will include that quarter. A part of the quarter is also considered as a full quarter. Okay, let's go to question number 22. Shubhalakshmi Foods is engaged in supplying. Can you show the theory part of the answer? Yeah, here it is. Okay. Question number 22. Shubhalakshmi Foods is engaged in supplying of restaurant services in Maharashtra. In the preceding financial, it had turnover of 140 lakhs from the restaurant service. Now you are requested to advise Shubhalakshmi Foods whether it is eligible for composite supply in the current year, assuming that in the current financial year, his turnover is expected to be 130 lakhs from the supply of restaurant service and 10 lakhs from the supply of farm labor in the said state. Okay. Further, it is also expected to earn a bank interest of 20 lakhs from the fixed deposits. Also compute the estimate tax payable by Shubhalakshmi Foods in the current financial year. Will you upload answers as well as questions? Yes, Shunath, I will upload the questions as well as answers. What do you think about this answer? Is he eligible for composition? Okay, let's answer this. Question number 22, whether we have to check marginal scheme is permitted. The question is that not eligible for engaging supply of services. No. Restaurant service under composition is there, but apart from restaurant service, can they do other services? There is something called as marginal scheme saying that up to a specified thing, they can do other services also. So we have to check whether that is within this permissible limit. If this is within this permissible limit, then they can claim it. Otherwise, they cannot. Okay. So marginal scheme permitted or no is we have to check. What is the marginal scheme permitted? 10% of the turnover in the preceding financial year or 5 lakh, whichever is higher. Okay. So that's the upper cap. 5 lakhs or 10% of the turnover of the previous year. And previous year turnovers anyways is below 1.5 crores. So first level, they are eligible. But now we have to see in this current year, if they make up to 10% of the turnover or 5 lakhs, whichever is higher, then they can claim it. So last year's turnover is 140 lakhs. 140 lakhs ka 10% is 14 lakhs. So 14 lakhs or 5 lakhs, whichever is earlier, up to this, they can do the labor supply, right? Whichever is earlier, which means they are eligible to make a service of 14 lakhs. Okay? And interest earned on the FD is also service component, but that niche is not to be considered, right? That is specifically exempted from the calculation. So we will not include that. Fine. So 14 lakhs or 5 lakhs, whichever is higher, the answer is 14 lakhs. And the service, what they're doing for this year is 10 lakhs. So they are eligible for this composition scheme. And they're doing 10 lakhs from the supply of farm labor in the said state. So they're doing up to 10 lakh rupees, which is below this 14 lakhs. So they're permissible. And interest earned on FD is not to be considered. Rate of composition is 2.5 plus 2.5%, so 5%. So this year they made turnover of 130 crores, 1 crore 30 lakhs. So 1 crore 30 lakhs plus 10 lakhs, which is 1.4 crores or 140 lakhs. On 140 lakhs, 2.5% is CGST and SGST is also same 1.4, 140 lakhs into 2.5%. On labor charge also, will it be? Yes, on labor charges also, it will be at the same rate itself. So the total GST payable will become 7 lakh rupees. First, if it is eligible, then we calculate. If it would not have been eligible, we would not have calculated itself. Okay. Question number 23. Bansal and Chandok have started a, so 5 lakh means for labor or another business? For all other business. So in this case, they've given labor, but basically for all other business, the limit is 5 lakh or 10% of the previous year's turnover. Bansal and Chandok started a partnership firm of chartered accountants in Jaipur, Rajasthan on 1st April 2021. The firm specializes in providing audit services to banks in Rajasthan. It provides the following details of its turnover. For April to June, its turnover is 10 lakhs. July to September, its turnover is 20 lakhs. It crossed the threshold limit on 1st of August 2021. Why? Because for services, the turnover limit is 20 lakhs. So when does it cross 20 lakhs is relevant, because up to 20 lakhs, they don't have to pay GST. So that's why it crossed 20 lakhs on 1st August 2021. Bansal and Chandok wishes to opt to pay for concessional rate under 2 of 2019, which is the composition scheme for services, which means they can pay a composition scheme of 6% on the services, like how we have 1% for manufacturer and trader, for restaurants 5%. Similarly, for any other services, the rate is 6% on the turnover. So they want to opt for this. Examine whether the firm is eligible for the scheme. If yes, then determine the tax payable by it in quarters April to June and July to September. Because in April to June also a dead sale. So will they have to pay any GST if in April to June? And for July to September, what is the tax they have to pay? Okay. So question number 23, we will solve it in this manner. Bansal and Chandok, April to June. Okay. April to June and July to September. April to June, is there any tax payable? No tax payable, because in April to June, the turnover is below 20 lakhs. So up to 20 lakhs, no GST, right? Now, July to September, 20 lakhs, but it crossed the threshold of 20 lakhs on 1st August, right? So up to 20 lakhs, no GST payable. 10 lakhs is touched in April to June. Now, balance of 20 lakhs, may say 10 lakhs goes off, because up to 20 lakhs, no GST. On the balance, 10 lakhs have to pay at 6%, which is 60,000 rupees. 10 lakhs into 6%, 60,000 rupees. That is first method. Or method 2, how you will calculate is total turnover, which is 30 lakhs, less threshold for registration, which is 10 lakhs, 20 lakhs, sorry. So threshold for registration is 20 lakhs, reduce that 20 lakhs. So my taxable turnover is 10 lakhs. On this taxable turnover of 10 lakhs, I have to pay GST at 6%, which is 60,000 rupees. So CGST of 30,000 and CGST of 30,000 rupees is payable. Will it be payable in April to June? No, it will be payable in July to September. So this is the how you calculate the tax payable for a threshold calculation when you are not yet registered and you've taken a fresh registration. Farm labor service is also exempted. Correct. Farm labor service is also exempted. Good doubt there. But when you're doing a composite supply, all the supplies will be taxable. Even if it is exempt supply, that becomes taxable because you're registered under composition scheme. If you are registered under normal scheme, you would not have paid the GST there. But under composition scheme, let it be for composition scheme for goods or composition scheme for services, you have to pay GST on the total turnover except the bank interest. Clear on this question number 23? How do you calculate tax payable on composition scheme? So once they have registered and gone under this composition, now next year, will they get this benefit of 10 lakhs again and 20 lakhs again? No. Once you're registered in the first year only, you get this exemption of 20 lakhs. Every year, you don't get this exemption. From the next year onwards, from the rupee one itself, they'll have to pay GST on that at 6%. Tejan, can you explain the taxable turnover of 10 lakhs again? Yeah. So you know that up to 20 lakh rupees for service providers, we don't have to take registration, and up to 40 lakh rupees for traders who are people who are supplying goods, we don't have to take registration. The threshold for goods is 40 lakhs, threshold for services is 20 lakhs. So on this April to June, the threshold is the turnover is below the threshold. So on April to June, I don't have to pay GST. Now in July to September, I made a turnover of 20 lakhs, but the threshold is 20 lakhs. Of this, I have used 10 lakhs. So balance 10 lakhs, I can still use as exemption. So on the 20 lakhs, 10 lakhs will go under exemption. I don't have to pay GST on that. On the balance 10 is what I have to pay GST. So on the balance 10, I will pay GST of 6%. Why GST rate is 6%? For composition of goods, how the rate is 1%. Like that, the government has specified that composition for services, the rate is 6%. Normally, it is 18% when it is under normal scheme, under non-composite scheme. But for a composite scheme, it will be at 6%. How marginal supplier services along restaurant service eligible for composition? Because restaurant service are eligible for composition, so marginal fee is available for all those composition payers who are there. So composition is available for trader, manufacturer, and restaurant services. So that's why they are also eligible. Okay, let's go to question number 24. Hiralal and Sons are registered in Karnataka. Hiralal and Sons are registered in Karnataka, has opted to avail the benefit of composition scheme. It has furnished the following details for the tax period ended on 30th June 2000. Okay. Taxable turnover of goods within the state is 15 lakhs. Exempted turnover of goods within the states is 17 lakhs. So the total turnover is 32 lakhs. Using the above information, calculate the tax to be paid by the firm for the tax period ended on 30th June 2000 in the following independent situations. If Hiralal and Sons is a manufacturer and Hiralal and Sons is a trader. Very simple question, but two scenarios are there. So please calculate the tax, what he has to pay, and let me know your answers. What type of registration is best, normal or composition? Whether it's normal or composition depends on transaction to transaction. Various factors, whether your customers will pay you the GST. If they pay you, then normal scheme is better because you can claim credit of your input services. But if you cannot claim, like some businesses, you have to give a fixed rate and you cannot collect any taxes extra. Their composition scheme will be better. Second thing is how much input you have, whether your suppliers are registered and they will charge you GST, then you can claim the input tax credit. Because in composition, you cannot collect taxes from your customers. You have to pay it from your own pocket, right? So will you be able to bear that additional cost? So that will be a deciding factor. And if you're a trader or manufacturer also makes a difference because you'll see in this question that for a trader, the rate is different on what value you calculate. Even though for manufacturer and trader, the rate both is 1%, the components on which you pay GST are different. So that will also be a deciding factor. So various factors will decide whether you can, which is best. How marginal supply of service restaurant? I've answered your question, Mohammed. So please tell me answer for this question number 24. Please calculate for this and tell me your answer. Manufacturing 64,000, trader 32,000. Manufacturing 64,000. So you have applied 2% rate for manufacturing, Vaishali. The rate is 1% itself for both, but the component is different. Okay, in our composition chapter discussion, we have specifically discussed with this. Okay, computation of computation of tax payable under composition scheme. If Hiralal and Sons first is a manufacturer. If he is a manufacturer, tax is to be paid at 1% of the turnover in the state. Turnover in the state. It doesn't say taxable turnover or exempt turnover. It says turnover, which means it's a total turnover. 1% of 32 lakhs, which is 32,000. Okay, which is CGST 16,000 and SGST 16,000. Whereas if Hiralal and Sons is a trader, okay, then it is 1% of the taxable turnover. And what is the taxable turnover mentioned? 15 lakhs. So 1% of 15 lakhs, 15,000, CGST of 7,500 and SGST of 7,500. So trader will pay less GST, manufacturer will pay more GST. Why is that? Because the provisions itself are worded like that. That's the reason this will be the calculation. Okay, let's go to question number 25. Agrocare Limited is registered under GST, furnishes the following details with respect to activities undertaken by them in the month of March 21. So exemption will get covered in this completely. Exemption for agriculturists, okay, and farm related thing will get covered in this question completely. They have received supply from farm labor. So a lot of things are this: receipts of supply from farm labor, charges for seed testing, farmland and things. So they've just wanted us to calculate the value of taxable supply. So we'll have to mention each line in our answers and say whether if it is taxable or exempt. If it's taxable, mention as in the amount and add it up. That's a simple question here. Because see, the question is very simple. Agrocare Limited, registered under GST, furnishes the following details with respect to activities undertaken by them in the month of March 21. All these details. Compute the value of taxable supply of Agrocare Limited for the month of March 21 if all the above amounts are exclusive of GST. So on this, whatever is the taxable value, calculate at the respective rate. So we have to calculate only the value of taxable supply. So we'll go and make a table so that we can understand this one by one. Before that, can itself be a restaurant service for manufacturer trader? No, restaurant service can't be there because restaurant service also is under composition. So apart from the manufacturer trader, if he has a restaurant service, fine. Apart from that, if there's any other services, they can do the marginal service. Question number 25. Agrocare Limited, computation of value of taxable supply. Receipt from supply of farm labor. Is it taxable or exempt? Supply of farm labor is exempted. So value will be nil. Entry number is entry number 54 or notification. Is this relevant? Not relevant. It's only for reference here. Okay. Receipt of supply of farm labor is exempted. Either you could mention nil or you can mention as exempted. Charges of seed testing. Seed testing is also exempted. Okay, so any amount received for seed testing is also exempted. Charges of soil testing, seed testing, soil testing, both are exempted. So this also comes under the exemption category. Then charges for warehousing of potato chips. Warehousing of potatoes is agricultural produce. Potato chips, so I'm basically taking one by one value from here and mentioning the same particulars from there to here and then distinguishing whether it's taxable or exempted. So charges for warehousing of potatoes will be exempted because it's an agriculture produce, but potato to potato chips changes the character. It doesn't remain as an agriculture produce. So warehousing of potato chips will become taxable. So it will be under taxable. 85,000 will be taxable. Then commission received on sale of wheat. Commission received on sale of wheat is exempted. Okay. Any commission received on this agriculture produce will be exempted. The reference for all of this will be entry number 54 itself. Then charges for training of farmers on use of new pesticides and fertilizers developed through scientific research. Okay, this person, the company is providing training for farmers for use of pesticides and fertilizers. So this will be exempted again. Okay. Then renting of vacant land to stud farm. Stud farm means what? Where they do farming of the horses. So anything, all animals farming will be exempted, but we understood that farming of horses is taxable. So renting of vacant land to stud farm is taxable. But renting of vacant land to cattle farm, same activity, but here it is cattle, here it is stud farm. Cattle will be exempted. Okay. Then charges for warehousing of rice, warehousing of agriculture produce and rice. Rice is not a primary product, primary agriculture produce, but warehousing of agriculture products and rice, they have said. So this will also be exempted. Then warehousing of cotton fabrics. Cotton is fine, but cotton fabrics is not agriculture produce. That will become taxable. Then retail packaging and labeling of vegetables and fruits. Fruits and vegetables, retailing and packaging, you'll get confused whether it's a primary product or a secondary produce. Even though it's a secondary produce, because after the fruits are picked, it has to stored and things like that, and then do the packaging. But still, fruits and vegetables is specifically excluded. So when you see that if fruit you're eating, don't think GST is paid on that, right? So there is no GST on that. It will be exempted on all fruits and vegetables. There is no GST. So when you get packaged fruits and vegetables from the from the supermarkets like Namdhari's or any supermarket, on the fruits and vegetables, it is exempted. Charges for warehousing of minor forest produce is exempted. So minor forest produce, like we had seen, no, some products are there, tamarind, bamboo, those minor forest produce are exempted. Then charges for warehousing of spices, that is also exempted. So all the exemptions goes off, then the value of taxable supply has to be added. So this question was nothing much of a bouncer, but your analysis on exemption is very much important. Just mention it and add it up. That's the simple question, and you'll get the full marks of this. Okay. Purely calculate the value of taxable supply. Tax is not to be calculated. So you end your question there. Read the question and don't try to expand your answer unnecessarily. Question number 26. Vivita and Company is a registered dealer in Ludhiana, which furnishes the following details of purchase and sales pertaining to the month of July 2021. Goods A purchased from local market, including GST at 18%. So it is cum tax because they specifically said that it is inclusive of GST at 12%. Goods B purchased from Jaipur, including GST at 18%, 82,600. Sale made during the month to dealer of Kolkata, goods A 40,000 and goods B 25,000. Sale made within the state of goods B 35,000. Above sales amount given is exclusive of tax. Even without this sentence, you would have assumed that this is exclusive of tax only, right? Compute the net CGST, SGST, and IGST liability and input tax credit, if any, for the month of July 2021. Okay, so how do we compute this? Very simple question again, but cum tax has to be considered. First is we'll consider a sale and the tax on that. Then input tax credit, how much is the ITC we can claim it. So question number 26, computation of GST liability. Interstate sales. First is he is in Ludhiana and he's selling to Kolkata, which means it's an interstate sale. Interstate sales of goods A, 40,000 rupees. 12% or 18%. How do you know? You will know based on the purchases. If the purchase, I've purchased goods A and I'm selling goods A, the rate will be same because he is a dealer. He is not a manufacturer, so that the description of the goods will change. If he's a dealer, he'll purchase at the same rate and he'll sell at the same rate itself. So 40,000 into 20%. Will there be any CGST? No CGST. Will there be IGST? Yes. Since CGST is not there, SGST is definitely not there. So only IGST will be there of 40,000 into 12%, which is 4,800. Then goods B, 25,000. Okay. Goods B, 25,000 at 18% because good B is purchased at 18% rate. 25,000 into 8%, no CGST, no SGST. But IGST will be there, 25,000 into 18%. And you have intra-state sale, within the state sale of goods B. Goods B at 35,000 into 18%, which means CGST of 9%, 35,000 into 9%, SGST of 9%. Is there any IGST? No IGST. Okay. So what is my total output? Total output is sum of this 3,150, 3,150, and sum of this 9,300. This is my total output. Then I will reduce the ITC. Is there any opening balance of ITC? No opening balance is mentioned. So assume nil. What is the IGST on IGST they've given, no? Credit of IGST. How do I calculate how did I get these values? I have to do a working note. So I'll mention note 1, IGST of CGST. First is ITC of CGST because I've purchased from local market 50,400. 50,400, which is inclusive of 12% CGST. Yeah, first let us calculate the GST. So in the working notes, first calculate the ITC. On goods A, 50,400 is inclusive of tax. So 50,400 divided by 112 into 12, which is 5,400. 5,400 would be half CGST, half SGST. So 2,700 because goods A is purchased from local market, so CGST and SGST. So 50,400 divided by 112 into 12 makes it as 5,400. Divide that half into CGST, half into SGST. Then goods B, 82,600 divided by 118 into 18. CGST, SGST will not be there because it is from Jaipur to Ludhiana interstate purchase, and I will get the full credit of 82,600 divided by 118 into 18, 12,600. This is my total ITC. Okay. How much is the IGST I have? Now, 1 minute, let me see this. So this is my total input tax credit. My output is this much. First, I will utilize ITC of IGST, which is 12,600. I have ITC credit of IGST credit of 12,600. So 12,600 I will utilize completely over here first. Balance I will utilize between these two. So out of 12,600, 9,300 goes off. 12,600 is my ITC of IGST. I will utilize first for IGST 9,300. Balance I have 3,300. Let me apportion this between the two equally. 1,650 CGST and 1,650 SGST. Okay. Now, what is the balance tax payable after reducing this ITC? 3,150 minus 1,650 gives me 1,500. Similarly, here also. Next, I have ITC of CGST. How much is the ITC of CGST? I have 2,700. How much is payable? 1,500. So I will utilize CGST with this CGST of 1,500. Can I utilize with SGST? We said and we understood that CGST cannot be utilized for SGST. So not permissible. Then utilization of SGST. SGST, how much is there? 2,700. Utilize that. Here cannot be utilized. Here 1,400 I can utilize. So I will utilize 1,400 here. Total input credit utilized is how much? Sum of ITC which is utilized 1,650 plus 1,500. And here it is 3,150 and here it is completely 9,300. So I've utilized completely over here. So total utilization is this much. Balance, any tax payable? No, because fully it's utilized. Credit will be how much is the ITC I've claimed, less utilized will be my balance ITC. IGST I've completely exhausted because I could utilize with CGST and SGST, but CGST I can utilize only with CGST. So from 2,700, I utilized 1,500, balance is my ITC. Okay, so this is how you need to work out. ITC, CGST 2,700, SGST 2,700, correct? Tax liability 6,300. SG, Vaishali, how do you get 2,409? Okay. Vaishali, just relook at your answer with the answer what I give, because I'm not getting any odd number like how you are getting. Looks like there is some mistake. Just see what you have done. And this is the answer which I'll post, so you could just cross check. Okay. If there's no doubt, we can go to the next question. PQR properties registered under GST as taxable person is engaged in business of renting various immovable properties owned by it. During the month ending 31st March 2021, it collected a rent of 5 lakh. The said sum includes the rent from the following activities. So like same question, we don't have to read. Okay, Vishal. So various items are given. We'll go in the answer and see, write these questions one by one and see whether it is exempted or taxable. Compute the amount of GST payable by the firm, assuming that the rent is exclusive of GST, if any, applicable in each case. Rate of GST 18%. Make suitable assumptions. Mrs. PQR properties. What is the taxability value and what is the tax payable? First is total rent. Total rent is 5 lakhs. So instead of adding one by one, what we'll do is we'll go with the total rent and reduce which is exempted. Balance will all be taxable itself. Less rent from vacant land. Okay. Vacant land used for agriculture, is it exempted? Yes, it is exempted. So I will reduce that. Then rent from land used for Appu circus. Okay. Any land used for circus, is it taxable or exempt? Any land used for circus is taxable. So it is taxable, no reduction. It will be taxable. Then properties let for residential purposes. So any properties let for residential purposes is exempt. So you reduce that. Okay. So we're going under reverse mechanism. So we are reducing what is exempted. Then building which is led to a hotel. Building led to a hotel is for commercial purposes. So it is liable to GST definitely. Is taxable. Then vacant land given on lease to Mrs. ABC Limited for construction of building at a later stage to be used for furtherance of business or commerce. Even though you give vacant land, it is still liable to GST. You can't say that it's a vacant land, so it becomes exempted. No, it will be taxable itself, even though they will use it for later purposes. But now it is the intention is for using of a commercial purposes. Vacant land, rent on a vacant land will be liable to GST. Premises led to a religious body being temple trust. Trust is all exempted, 80G we said, and trust who is registered and having 10 AA registration. So assume if this is having it, it will be exempted. But the aspect is activities, charitable activities provided by the trust are exempted. Services provided to the trust will not become exempted. So I am providing a renting services. So when I provide this renting service to the trust, it will be taxable itself. So this is liable to GST. It is taxable, right? Now premises led to a coaching center. Coaching center is also taxable, and whatever services I provide to a coaching center, that will also be taxable. Building led to a hospital. Hospitals are exempted, but whether my services to a hospital are exempted? No, my services to a hospital are liable to GST. So this is liable to GST taxable. So total tax payable will be 5 lakh minus total of this, which is 3 lakh 80,000 rupees. Out of 5 lakh, I will reduce 50,000 and 70,000. So my taxable value is 3 lakh 80,000. GST payable at 18%, which is 68,400. Okay. So to reduce the time, what you do is don't take one by one service as added, take the total rental and reduce which is exempted. Okay, we'll take up this last question, question number 28, and other questions So for resident purpose, why exempt? Because the exemption notification gives that if you आपके घर, if you take a rent house and if you pay GST, then your rental will become costlier, no? So that's why the government has taken an economic policy and decided that on residence purposes, if you're renting out a building for residential purposes, on rent for residential purposes, GST will not be collected. In exemption also, it is specifically mentioned that renting for residential purposes is exempted. So we'll take up this last question, question number 28. Other questions and answers I'll given you here. You can consider this and work out, and I'll give you the answers also. Last question. After that, if you have any questions, you could ask. Okay. Question number 28. Messrs. XYZ and Company is a firm of chartered accountants issued invoice for services rendered to Mr. A on 7th September. Determine the time of supply in the following independent cases. So far, there are 4 instances. For each of this, we have to determine the time of supply. The provision of services was completed on 1st August and the payment was received on 28th September. Okay. First is for in all the cases when they have rendered the service, they have rendered the service on 7th September. First instance, second, third, fourth. In all the instances, they have provided the services on 7th September. Now, the provision of service was completed on 1st August. Okay. Invoice date is 7th September, completion is 1st August, and receipt of payment is 28th September. So what is the time of supply in this case? First is in all the instances they're asking for time of supply. So we'll better mention the provisions of time of supply for services, then come to the answers, so it will become easier. The time of supply of services is the date of issue of the invoice if the same is issued within 30 days from the date of supply of service or the date of receipt of payment, whichever is earlier. This section 13 says, fine. So it says that the time, you have to write this, the time of supply of service is the date of issue of invoice if the same is issued within 30 days of the date of supply of service, right? If I've provided the service today, I can raise the invoice within 30 days. If I raise it within 30 days, the time of supply becomes the date of supply of the service, okay, or the date of receipt of payment, whichever is earlier. Okay, so that is it becomes 30, if you issue within 30 days, it will become the date of invoice or the date of receipt, whichever is earlier. But if the invoice is issued late, the time of supply says that, time of issuance of invoice says that raise the invoice for provision of service within 30 days. If you raise the invoice late, then the date of supply of service is the time of supply is the date of provision of the service or the date of receipt of payment, whichever is earlier. It goes back to the date of provision of service, not the date of invoice. Date of provision of service or receipt, whichever is earlier, in accordance with the aforesaid provision. The time of supply in the 4 independent cases will be as follows. Okay. In the first instance, 1st August. Why? So not 7th September. Like few people have answered 7th September. It's not 7th September, it is 1st August. Why? The provision was completed on 1st August. When should I issue invoice? Within 30 days, which means by 31st August, I should have raised an invoice. Have I raised on 31st August? No, I've raised on 7th September, which means if invoice is not issued within 30 days, date of provision of service or payment received, whichever is earlier. So provision of service is 1st August. So 1st August will be the date of time of supply. Second instance, provision was complete. Tell me the answer for second question now. Date of provision of service means what? Date of completion or date of starting? It is date of completion. So date of provision of service means the date of completion of service. First instance, 1st August. Second instance, 14th August. Correct. Because 14th August is the provision of service and I've issued the invoice within time of 30 days, right? So in second instance, it is issued within time. So it will not be 14th August. It will be the date of invoice, not the 14th August. 14th August is provision of services. Immediately on the provision of service, will you raise invoice? No, right? You'll raise an invoice at least by within some days, right? So if you raise an invoice within 30 days, the time of supply will be the date of issue of invoice. And this date of issue of invoice is within 30 days. 14th August plus 30 makes it as 13th September. So I've issued the invoice well on time. So I have to, in the second case, most of you have answered 14th August, which is not correct. It is 7th of September. Okay. In third instance, Mr. A made the payment on 3rd August. Our provision of services are remaining to be completed. Okay. But uh, I have received the payment on 3rd August. So third instance, it's clear 3rd August because date of earlier is 7th. But second instance, most of you have given wrong answer. Please be careful in that. Okay, 7th September and not the 14th August. Fourth instance, correct, Vishal. Your answer is correct. In fourth instance, it is 7th September because invoice is raised prior to the receipt. So receipt or invoice, whichever is earlier. In this case, I have invoice which is on 7th September. Then the 7th September becomes the time of supply. Very good. Can you explain case 2 again? Yes, case 2 is a case where the invoice is raised on time or no, right? I've completed the service on 14th August. I have to raise within 30 days. 14th August, say 30 days makes it how many, on what date? 13th of September. Now, if I've raised the invoice on time, the time of supply is what? The date of issue of invoice or receipt of payment, whichever is earlier. So you have to compare between 7th September and 28th September, whichever is earlier. So 7th September. So time of supply will be the 7th September itself. Clear. So we are done with our questions today. Any doubts you have, I'll be happy to answer. And I saw a lot of students were very interactive and were asking very, very good questions. Keep the good study, keep always studying and practice more for your exams. This way of teaching, I could teach you the best way and produce the answers in this manner, but you'll have to do a lot of working out, right? Take a pen and take a lot of papers and keep working out a lot of question and answers. So you're more the practice, more the better. Try to solve complicated questions so that your confidence level increases for the practical aspects. For theoretical aspects, understand the concepts clearly so that even in the exams, you could frame the answers in your own words so that your learning can be depicted there. The main intention of the question paper is to check whether you know the provisions, whether you have understand the concepts. So if your concepts are clear, then you will definitely get a full answer for your questions. Can a restaurant service provider do marginal supply of salon stylist? Yes, he can do it. Any services, they've said, any services. So restaurant service provider can do a supply of salon stylist as well. Except, of course, the marginal supply I've said so to that extent. All the best. Thank you. And hope my classes were really helpful. And I've seen in the past that students were responding on my number saying that yes, they really enjoyed the classes. So do let me know if you have any feedback. And I've given my number in the class. Do contact me if you have any questions and any feedback. I'll be happy to help you. And all the best for your exams. Please do your number. Yeah, my number 988 611 814. Please message me, students, so I'll connect with you. And this class IDT, I'll tell you, definitely it's a very good subject for your exams, and later on also as a practice, it's a good subject. If you have interest in the subject, this will be really helpful. We have a lot of opportunities, first as a trainee, then to learn the subject, then a lot of areas in GST are there. So please take full interest. I know a lot of students are responding now. I'm not seeing your answers, but good that I'm seeing your response now, that you were attentive and you were participative. Take more and more interest in this subject. Taxation is a good subject. It's a scoring subject for you, firstly, for your exams now. Please take complete interest. I'll just wait for 2 more minutes if you have any more questions. $29. Vaishali, you want to know the answer? Okay. Trading company, goods were supplied, invoice was issued on 5th, payment received on 9th. What is the time of supply? Supplied on 3rd, invoice issued on 5th. So will it be 3rd or 5th? 3rd, because once you supply, okay, that is the time and not the invoice. So in services, we have 30 days time. For goods, we don't have any time. Once you clear your goods, you have to raise the invoice. In this case, invoice has to be issued on 3rd. He's not issued it on 3rd, but the time of supply is 3rd itself. Thank you, Bhumika. Thank you, Mr. Arya. Good that you enjoyed the session and you learned. I'm very happy for you. And all the very best for your exams, all the very best for your studies. Hope you are all are writing in November and clearing at the earliest. The earlier, the better. All the very best. Yeah, 2 minutes. For saloon stylists, it is said that composition rate is 6%, while restaurant have 5%. In that case, if you do marginal supply along with restaurant, which rate is applicable? Yeah, then it will become the rate of 6%. So it will not be beneficial. So restaurant service, you have to take a separate registration, and composition, you take a separate registration so that you can benefit. Actually, you will benefit at restaurant service because restaurant, you will have 5%, which will apply for all. Okay, thank you, Shivam. Thank you, Ms. Vaishali. Thank you for being interactive and participative in the questions. Thank you, Mr. Mohammed, as well. Which rate will be applicable in that case? If you, because you are doing restaurant and doing a saloon stylist, okay? And if that saloon stylist is coming under the marginal scheme, then it will be better that you take composition for restaurant service and apply for saloon stylist and keep the threshold, the turnover of the saloon stylist at a lesser than the marginal scheme. Then it will be beneficial for you. Because if you take marginal composition scheme registration for the saloon stylist, then restaurant service, you'll have to take a separate registration. So composition for this, but composition for this and composition of that, that will not be permitted. because marginal scheme is there only for supply of composition with services, but for services with other services, that is not permitted. Turnover limit for restaurant service is 1.5 crores, not 50 lakhs. Great, Sejal. Good that it was a good brush up session for you. Hope with this you're confident for your exams. Great, Ms. Singh Rajiv Kumar, waiting. So if you have any questions, you could reach out to me. Good that you enjoyed the sessions. Thank you very much. Yes, sir. Session, can conclude the session now. Thank you. Good night.